Warning, the audio in this video is awful. I'm using a headset mic right now, my desktop mic. I used it to record an hour of commentary yesterday, and then it just stopped working. Now this wouldn't be so bad if it didn't stop working within seconds of starting the recording. So I just have an hour of unusable static-filled footage, so take two. I received a comment on my first video that mentioned something called art fight. So I did some research and I realized, wow, this is actually really cool. And I thought, why not try to simulate something like that or a video? So I went on Reddit. I chose 3 random OCs I liked. I drew them, obviously. Then afterward, I figured, you know, if we're going to be competing, that's not the right word there. If we're going to be participating in art fight, we're going to need an OC of our own. So I said, why not create an OC for art fight and then, you know, someone to hang out with the duck. So let's start with the 3 OCs I found on Reddit. The first one was a character that was a part of an action comic story, I believe. After seeing a cool pose on Pinterest, I decided why not combine the two. So like, here's the pose, here's the OC, credits on screen. I started this drawing with the line of action from the shoulder down to the fist. Then I started mapping out the anatomy using the shapes. I spent a while working on the pose itself, and then I just went over that and just did my final lining. I didn't really sketch the character, I just kind of gave it my best attempt. All in all, I was actually pretty happy with this one. I noticed for the first time I was actually going back and resizing things and changing the position of things. And that's something I've never used to do. The second OC. It reminded me of a lot of my favorite sports mangas, so I figured, why not, you know, go straight to Pinterest and find one of those cool poses. So with this one, again, we start with the line of action, in this one, it was more like the spine of action. The body was, that was terrible. The body was looking very weird at first, but I stretched and pulled it until I was happy with the final result. You know, because I was actually pretty happy with this one, but definitely, I feel like it could have been a lot better, because I kind of feel like I was using the reference as a crutch, and I was almost copying and, you know, using the same folds for the clothing, and I should have just put the reference away after I got the pose down. For the third OC, we got this cool one here. I really like the shaggy hair over the eyes, so I figured I'd give it a shot. I started with the head and shoulders, and then I worked my way down to the arms. I had to re-angle them a little. I drew a very weird looking set of legs. I went over the sketch 2 more times for some reason. I made a weird one that made the hips curve into the spine. I then sketched over those with a Loomis mannequin body with the hips and spine showing. Then we had the fun part, the hair. I was pretty happy how it turned out. I had to look at several tutorials on how to draw hair, and I combined that with 100 references I looked at. But I liked the end result. The clothes came out good. They covered my anatomy errors, and I really liked the samurai pants, the hakama. I don't know if that's how you say that. All in all, another piece I was happy with. And then we get into the moment we've all been waiting for. At least I've been waiting for. Creating our own character. So, a little backstory. I had drawn this character when I first started my art journey 10 years ago. I never gave him a name or anything below his shoulders, but his design was always in the back of my head. So I thought, why not write down some ideas on this overly informed ref sheet. I went with the name Cole Sutter. It had a Lone Ranger vibe to it, and it took me way longer than I'm willing to admit. This character's from a story idea I had years ago about a world where the government found a way to employ people as like taskers, and it ranges from like hitman stuff. I don't know, it's like an action thing. But I'm not going to bore you with infinite info on the setting. Some small notes about him, I guess. He lost his left eye, so he can't use ranged weapons, but that's fine with him because he just likes to use a blade. He's cold on the outside, warm on the inside. He's obsessed with money and willing to do any task that pays. You can find him fighting mob bosses or fixing sinks. And, you know, he likes to act tough around clients, but he's actually a nice guy. He's always looking out for the underdogs. Then I gave him the nickname C-Note. I felt like it was perfect. It starts with a C for Cole, and it's also, you know, slang for a $100 bill. Now onto the design. I decided I was going to give him like dress shoes, and then, as you can see, at first they kind of look like sandals. Eventually I got them to look like a pair of bowling shoes, but it's close enough for now. I went on Pinterest, and boy oh boy did they have a million references on how to draw suit pants, and from all angles, sitting and standing. So I used a reference on this first pant leg, and then I applied what I learned to the other leg, though now it kind of looks like a weird copy-paste situation, but in reality, it could also just be because the pose is weird. I applied what I learned about folds to the dress shirt. I eventually settled on making the sleeves rolled up. For action fighting reasons, obviously, not because I couldn't get the sleeves to look right. And you can see the second sleeve actually came out much better because I had to plan ahead this time that the sleeve would be rolled up. And then it was finally time for the head. And based on the sketch, Cole must be a bobblehead because I drew his head gigantic in the sketch. Put use of the folds I learned into the headband wrap thing. I started it with some great ears. Then I worked on this interestingly wide jawline. And then I focused on the eyes. Recently a tutorial I watched mentioned how the eyes and face should conform to the shape of the head. So I drew the eyes at an angle and I felt the head conform to. I don't know if that makes sense. It probably doesn't. I finished up the face. And then I drew Cole's tiny hairs on top because I still got to work on learning how to draw hair. The sword was pretty easy. I just drew it like I used to draw swords when I was 6. I feel like the hands look a bit weird, but I wanted them to be more unique in pose rather than trying to get away with simple blobs like I would. And now the finished colored Cole Sutter, our money-loving hitman, freelance job taker. That's not the right photo. Cole Sutter, our first OC for the channel and for Art Fight. Thanks for sticking with me in my slow, boring art journey. Next week, I'm going to start really buckling down on my art studies. I have to shape up my skills before Art Fight. If you're going to be doing Art Fight, let me know in the comments so I can attack you. That sounds weird, but if you know what Art Fight is, it probably isn't that weird to you. And if you don't feel like leaving in the comments, you can also follow me on Art Fight. I'll put the link in the description if you'd like. Thanks for watching. The video's over.